Hi, Mary.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Is it the two of us? I hope not.
There's four people in this session.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I hope it's the two of us, but
I know. There's four in this one, and then he's got a Sunday session with three people.
oh, he's really busy.
Yeah.
There he is, the big man. Hi, Justin.
Hello.
How are you?
Hey.
Hey.
How you guys doing?
Good.
We had some snow.
Oh, we had so much snow. I'm so done with it. Oh, you guys, you want to see outside of my house? It's like, look at this.
Oh, wow.
It's like, I hate this. I hate it. I'm Greek. I'm not supposed to be in a climate like this.
Yeah, we have snow too.
Where are you, Mary?
New Jersey.
Oh, yeah, you have same thing.
Yeah.
Justin is the lucky one. Give him a good
Well,
weather.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's raining here today, so it's a little bit miserable.
Oh, we feel so sorry.
I know what it's like to have a ton of snow, so
Where are you from?
Minnesota.
Oh, then you do know.
So I win, yeah.
You
but
win.
not today, yes.
Hi, Marty.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. It's the old team. It's pretty much the same team, apart from Mary, right? Hi, Mary.
I was officially
How you doing, dude?
in the group last time, but I was traveling.
Oh,
a lot,
yeah, of course.
So I was absentee a bit.
Yeah.
We're having fun in LA.
Yeah, well, we heard vicariously. You had like a really awesome experience, right?
Yes, we had a really good week. We had lots of great meetings and yeah, it was pretty awesome.
That's good.
But the meeting with me was the best one, right, Mary?
You know what? Honestly, meeting your office with your boss and you and the guy up front was actually my favorite of all the meetings.
I was teasing, but thank you.
It really was. It totally was.
so teed up, and it was like, how long is that going to take?
And Justin, are you celebrating for the Green Book? Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, 2 Oscars, not bad for the company.
Not bad. Yeah, I was thinking of you that night. I was like, wow.
Yeah, no, I text
All
Susan.
drinking now and
I text Susan, our CEO, because she doesn't watch it. It's sort of like she's a huge Patriots football fan, right? So she doesn't watch them either, like the Super Bowl. I don't know if it's superstition or just what. But I text her the minute that Nick won Best Screenplay, since that was first, and she's like, ooh, and then later on, Best Picture was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So exciting.
Were
Congratulations.
you there? Were you there, dude?
No, I wasn't. I hope to be there with something that I've contributed to and am nominated for very soon. So.
Oh, really?
How difficult is it to actually get an invite?
Is it something that is being worked on right now?
Well, I'll say this. I mean, you never know, but there's 2 projects that I have that have that kind of caliber behind them, and those kind of stories. So, if we get so lucky as to get it further into, official pre-production, because right now we're just going out and kind of packaging with it, then yeah, I mean, it stands a chance just subject-wise. You never know till you see how the film turns out. But
Right. Do you have any big names attached to them?
one of them has a name that you wouldn't maybe know the name, but you would know if I told you the resume of the person. You'd be like, oh my God. Yeah, he's an Academy Award winner already. And wants to make a directorial debut. So.
Oh, wow.
Bloody hell. That's pretty cool. To direct his own script.
No, it's something that I had the script, and then I ended up in a meeting with him, and it was a really lovely, beautiful thing. But kind of organically, we're just talking and getting to know each other. And I said, I don't know why, but I have this project. I feel like this would just be right for you. And it turns out he wanted to make his directorial debut, and then he almost like leapt off the chair, and he's like, that's exactly the kind of thing that I want to do first. It's not a massive budget, but it's not, nothing wrong with it, but it's not a $200,000 movie.
Like that mid-range budget, 30 million kind of thing.
Yeah, it's probably more 10 to 20.
All right, okay.
And he has a special effects background and an editing background and et cetera, and has directed, for himself before. So this is kind of the perfect thing to get his feet wet.
That's
with.
exciting.
So hopefully that will go. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
It's not the dude that you sent me he wrote that short, didn't he? The guy you sent me the POC of. That's he's a writer.
But Chris is really, really great too, and he has a script. The feature version of the short that I sent you is fantastic and very, very timely. So just for Mary and Despina, Marty's talking about a project he wanted to see kind of what someone had done as the proof of concept, because he's about to do that for his script. And I sent him over one of the guys that I work with, and the feature version of that is called Pieces, and it's about basically a kept young man, shall we say, who is accused of murdering a Harvey Weinstein type executive. So it's fiction, but it's kind of ripped from, the headlines, and it's about the murder, but not really. It's more about the balance of power, whether this young man kind of has a certain amount of power or the Weinstein figure. It's a fascinating character-driven piece. So
it reminded me of Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, no, there's an aspect of that for sure. Yeah.
And Brad Pitt went after Weinstein and told him, take your hands off Gwyneth or else.
Yeah. I'm sure he wasn't the only one either, that did over the years. But yeah, he's shut down now, thankfully.
It is unbelievable because, with the younger women now, it's not as prevalent. I work in the New York State legislature, and probably Mary has experiences. Just being a female, you have gotten so much harassment over the years in at work. I had state senators who will come after me. They will come after my interns who were like 20 years old. I had to walk into a state senator's office and threaten him because he was going after my 20-year-old intern.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you doing? Do you want the papers to get a hold of this? But it was like,
it's cool. That's the rules of the game. They can't get away with it anymore, can they?
Yeah, but now my daughter, who's now 28, a few years ago worked in the New York State legislature as an intern. She was a graduate intern. And they have a rule now that the interns cannot go out and fraternize with the staff and the members because the members are the ones who cannot hold themselves, but they put it on the interns to keep away from them. So how messed up?
That's part of the, it's part of the world, isn't it?
Who has the power can say, I can't hold myself, so the interns have to leave the restaurant if I walk in. It was unbelievable, yeah. Anyway, we can go on and on and on about that.
I know. Well, thankfully things are changing.
They bloody are. It's definitely a big shift right now.
They are changing because they're afraid now to do things like that because women have become very vocal about it. As it should be.
All power.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So here we are on a brand new incubator. Feels like old times, of course. You guys are all old friends now, which is great. Anybody want to start? Need to start?
I'm definitely not fast. Where's Jeff?
So Joey sent me an email later last night saying I guess it had shifted. So for our sessions, this is it. It's going to be.
Oh right, Jeff's not joining us. All right, okay.
Yeah, I think
so we're only 3.
It's just the 3. Yep.
Oh, cool. For every session for this month?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Originally there was like 6 or something, and then Joey's like, "Oh, I have to divvy some things up," and then ended up.
Yeah, it's more work for you, right, dude? You got to do 2 sessions, or it works out.
Well, I'm doing 2 sessions. I'm doing a Sunday one, but now I have a balance because that would have been crazy to have 6 in one. Or like
it's actually better for you. It works out better for you. Oh, that's cool, man. Cool.
It did. I was doing something else on a Sunday, and then Joey's like, "Can you just do another incubator to accommodate everyone?" Great, works fine.
Cool.
So here we are. So Mary, I have yours on top, so I'll start with you just by default. So you got.
Okay.
But yeah, you did a lot more work on this, so that's cool. Did you have fun crafting it further?
I did. The last time it was just like a rough idea, and I tried to kind of visualize what every scene would look like. Every paragraph, basically, I try to make like a scene. And every time I switch a scene, it still feels light. This is when I write, I tend to write shorter than longer, and I have to kind of make sure I get to my 90 pages.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but there's room for expansion, and I think some of the things that I throw out to you might help with that, at least get your brain kind of working.
Great. That would be really helpful. I also realized that almost all my names start with an S, and I just threw the names on the page. They don't have to all do that.
It was an S day, yes.
It really was, yeah. I think all the dwarfs or the kids can all be S names, but everybody else can have other names.
Sure. Yeah. No, I hear you. I wasn't conscious of that, but now that the minute you said it, I was like, yep, actually they are. Sneezy and and Serafina, of course. And for Marty and Despina, this is back to, if you remember, 5 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, I guess, Mary had talked about the Christmas fairy tale project. If you remember us talking about that, so now she's done more work on it.
Yeah, so this time I want to do a true incubator and start at the beginning and try to get most of the script done in the month.
Cool. So I will dive in, and then obviously we'll do what we do and have our back and forth and what have you. So I wondered, I think the children, you might want to give them real names, and then have each of those really adorable dwarvish, right, names be their nicknames.
Sure.
And that kind of goes to an overall thing. I wonder if it might play better and maybe even be more attractive, shall we say, of a project if some of the fairy tale elements are a little bit more hidden and then kind of come out as it goes. You know, it's almost like that we don't know we're watching a fairy tale, but the audience will. But you know what I mean? We don't know that it's playing out that way. So for Serafina in particular, who is, you know, shall we say, obsessed with fairy tales or in love with the idea of them, she doesn't realize she's starring in one, if we could say.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think if you can, I think it'll be charming then for the audience to go, oh, that's what she's doing. It's the stepmother, or, you know.
Sprinkle it in a little. Yeah. And it's not the stepmother, it's the evil principal. So it might take a little while to connect the dots.
But I think people will, because the trope is the same, even though it's not a sister. It's, like you said, it's the principal, yeah. But she serves that same purpose, which is cool. I think that's absolutely the cleverness of this, is you've modernized it. There's no real magic that happens. There's just kind of that lovely magic of people meeting and getting thrown apart and coming back together, which is great. So I mentioned that already. So instead of there being no budget, and that being the thing that sends our hero, our Prince Charming, if you will, like to the town, maybe he's been doing all these really high-profile things, and since it's Christmas, the top brass suggests we need to have something that's more wholesome, for lack of a better word, or more like down to earth. And so that's why they want to send him to this quote-unquote charming, picturesque little town that no one's heard of, and this like craft fair. So it plays the same in terms of he's like, well, I've just, interviewed Beyonce. Why are you sending me? But I feel like the mission for it could be, maybe direct.
A nice, light-hearted, yeah.
Because it feels like a real kind of news assignment based on the time of year as well. Mm-hmm. And then you could even play with the idea that, his boss, the editor, kind of resembles a sort of fairy tale trope too. He doesn't have to, but by sending him out to that, maybe he knows something that our Prince Charming doesn't.
I've thought if he was like kind of like the king who rules over everything, and then it's the son that goes out into the world to bring home the princess.
Right. I mean, and that's really, again, that's the purpose that he's serving. That's the the thinly veiled disguise that he wears as the head of the newspaper or the magazine, which is cool. Oh, and I thought maybe the art fair itself isn't necessarily horrible. It's just he doesn't find the right image. I like the idea. It's almost like, too, and I have this note later, but maybe in his dating life, like, he can kind of get whatever woman he wants, and he tries several different types of woman out, but he can't really find the right one. It's that old kind of long-time Hollywood thing, too, which is kind of beautiful, that it's like, he doesn't want to just be with someone to be with them, just like he doesn't want to just have a photograph because he needs one. He wants it to be like the most perfect thing, which is what makes him unique and special. Does that make sense?
He takes photographs of the different people in the craft fair, and he just doesn't have the perfect picture yet.
Yeah. I think that kind of goes in then with the theme of, like, because they're finding each other and they're kind of the perfect person for each other too. Because in that moment where he sees her, which you already have in there, which is she comes late and all that, it really will then open things up, and it really is a magical kind of moment without there being actual fairy dust, so to speak.
Oh yeah, the wrong picture could be kind of funny too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think just playing it like that'll just, it'll cement things a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think also then someone should point out to Steve that the image of Serafina that he took is like that fairy tale. I think that might be interesting too. Like, he just thought it was the most perfect image, but he doesn't necessarily link it to Cinderella or whatever fairy tale you want to reference in the image. Does that make sense?
Sure, it could be. Maybe he sends the picture to his boss, and the boss might mention.
Yeah, that's Rapunzel. Who? Don't you remember when you were a kid? Blah blah blah. It's a great opportunity then to remind the audience of what you're hinting at too, which most of them will get and laugh at it in a good way. Yeah, I think that would help too. And then what if someone damages the fairy tale book? What if one of even the kids did, like, by accident? And so she has to.
Or the mean teacher next door does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She could even use one of the kids. Like, she set it up to where, the kid that always trips over himself or whatever, is clearly going to damage it. So she's like, here, hold this book. Do you know what I mean? And he can't, and it slips.
Or she puts a glass of water right on it.
Right.
And one of the kids, and Stinky or Sloppy or whoever it is knocks it over.
Yeah, but you got it. I think that would really be cool. And it sets her up as being really, really evil, in that fairy tale way. But then, she's even going to use the kids, because then you have the child feeling bad and we'll have to redeem him, and then you can have Serafina or whatever you'll end up calling her being comforting him, but at the same time she's heartbroken because it's damaged this thing that you can't replace, or so she thinks.
Yeah, I think I'm keeping her name and the kids' S names, but I have to change the other names.
Yeah, but then if you're going to give them, like, real names, it could be John, but everybody calls him Sneezy, So I think that'll work fine. So you had said in there that she needs to get something to put things back together, and it ends up being kind of like tape and glue and whatever.
Well, yeah, if the book is water damaged, then tape isn't going to even help.
Right. So I was thinking the book seems destroyed. So then at that moment, she has a choice, like we all would. She can either feel sorry for herself that there's been this tremendous loss, because it is, or she can kind of pick herself up and try to feel better by helping other people. And I thought that fits her character. And so it also gives us an excuse to get her out of the house. So when he and the kids show up, she's not there yet, which I loved. It's like she's lost the book, but so she wants to connect to someone else, because seeing the joy on their face at Christmas from something she is able to do. Maybe she brings people ornaments or something because she has those. I think it just adds a nice little bit to her character there.
So the book doesn't get destroyed till way at the end?
Maybe not. Maybe we go through it, and it's not until our evil principal realizes how special that book is to her that she seeks out to destroy it.
Okay.
And maybe we can watch her try before, and maybe at that point we find Serafina finds a way to fix it. And maybe she got to tear a page, but it's like, aha, I've taped it back together and it looks better than before. Curses, like that kind of thing can happen throughout if you want it to.
And then later on, it's when she puts the glass of water on it that the kid
Yeah.
knocks over.
Yep, which I think is great. I loved the ending. That was awesome. I didn't quite know what you were going to do with it because I'd forgotten that you kind of had that beat in there. And then when he pulls the ring out of the shoe, it was great. Yeah, I love that. So then here were some ideas as far as to maybe expand or build on the story. I think you need more obstacles than just these two women.
Okay.
And that ties into the second note, which is I think you can use more fairy tale references, like shrouded fairy tale references, but they can still be there.
What other obstacles could we have besides the two evil people?
Sure. So, off the cuff, I would think of all the different fairy tales and the things that present obstacles to those characters in there. Like Red Riding Hood has the big bad wolf, of course, who disguises itself as grandma, So you can have someone who appears that seems one way but is really out to get her. I'm just making it up off the top of my head. But, you have Hansel and Gretel and the witch, and they, get trapped in the house, but then they have to find their way out. So you can do things like that. And, you can use weather. You can use a contest that she loses. I don't know. But anything you can slip in that also references in some way a fairy tale, I think would be good.
Yeah, that's going to be tricky to come up with that, but
I think it'd be a fun challenge, though. Like, look back over Grimm's and things, and in those tales, I bet you'll find something, and just think of what the modern, real-world equivalent of whatever that thing is.
okay. There was, I think one of my favorite ones is where the evil stepmother sends her out in a paper dress, and the only way to find her way back is pieces of bread, and the animals eat all the pieces of bread, and she's lost in her paper dress.
Yeah. Or like, Snow White, the witch has the apple that she's poisoned. So you could have something like, here, I baked this for you, and she gets sick, and you can do those kinds of things if you wanted to as well.
Oh, they could make her an apple tart and put X-Lax in it or something.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Christmas cookies or Christmas cake or something, absolutely. You're a sick person, Mary. And then there's that moment where he sees the kids and then enlists their help, which I think is really great. But what if the kids see him and help him? I think that might be even cuter. It's like
At the end? We're already at the end?
Yeah. I'm just skipping with things that occurred to me after I was really kind of meditating on it.
Okay.
And what if it was like the shy kid that goes over to him? I think that would be cute too. It's like if you can give the kids a little beat to overcome something that we get a hint of, so if it's the shy one who never talks and then he goes over and he's all bold, or she, to talk to Steve, I think that'd be really cute. You'll have audiences just eating out of your hand. It'd be wonderful.
All the kids have got to overcome something.
Yeah, and it's in their names. Like the next one I thought of was give Sassy a moment to stand up to the evil teacher and the principal. It's like use your sass in a good way rather than trying to disrupt class or whatever, the issue is that they have. because the same thing, like whether you, Mary, were conscious of it or not, it's like the fairy tales are filled with things that are human qualities, right? So, we've all been sassy, we've all been shy, you know what I mean? So,
And grumpy and smart and everything.
yeah. So these things that seem kind of superficial aren't. It's actually just you're giving a human condition and archetype to these kids, and so if you can watch them overcome that, it works. I think it works really well.
Okay, like the smart one can be maybe not sociable, and at the end, that one becomes friends with the others.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know what film I think did that really well was Pitch Perfect?
Yes.
The first one, there was a whole ton of characters, and they all had their own little arcs, and it was just all wrapped up so nicely.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like the writer was saying, now I'm going to wrap everything up either. It was like very organic to the nature of the story, which you have the opportunity for that here for sure. And then for Steve, I think we want probably a little bit more background on him. Oftentimes in fairy tales, usually it's the prince, but sometimes it's the princess that doesn't really get any backdrop. They just kind of show up, help, kiss the girl, and they win.
Save the day, yeah.
So it's like the idea that I had was I like the idea of maybe, he's doing his thing. He's obviously really, really successful. He's super good looking. He's super sweet. That's just his nature. And he's got women, like all over him, but it's not who he wants. Maybe one's too bossy. Maybe one's too greedy. Maybe one's too, and Seraphina is like just right for him.
So we need to see him like women kind of chasing him and he sends them away.
I think so. You could even have a man kind of hit on him too, and he treats that graciously as well, but that's obviously not for him because he's not gay. It's like the more you can play into those things too, I think it'll just help.
Without bringing too many characters in, because I already have a bunch.
Well, I don't think those are necessarily characters as much as they are, again, just kind of superficial
Situations.
Bouncing off of him. I don't think that he has a girlfriend. I think it's more like maybe someone tries to set him up and he's on a date and we just see him because he's come back from meeting Seraphina and he's like, he doesn't want to be there. And we get that, but he's trying to be gracious at the same time to that person. And
maybe the boss tries to set him up.
it could be, yeah, but that's something to play with. Certainly someone in his workspace makes sense.
Okay, the boss needs a nice wife to be the queen.
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe she tries to set him up.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a crazy idea. What if the evil the evil teacher gives her a bottle of shampoo, and it's got it's got that stuff that like Nair that takes your hair off, and she gives and she thinks she's being nice to her, and she gives her this bottle of shampoo, but she can't use it, or something's got to happen to this bottle of shampoo. She can't use it.
Yeah, but play with that because I like that idea. It's like, oh, I've gotten you a gift basket from, I thought you could do something nice for yourself.
It's the apple. It's the evil apple.
It's apple scent. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And we're on the same page, but that's what I mean. The more stuff you can kind of pull in and, everything in the kitchen sink, fairy tale-ish, but the modern version of it that anyone who's familiar will go, oh my God, that's what she's doing. It's like, for him, the three little bears is almost like the three women, it's like one of them is too this, one of them is not enough that, and then Seraphina is just right, that kind of thing. But don't ask me where that came from. That's twisted.
No, that's, yeah.
Yeah, and then I had a question too, and it's not necessarily that it infuses the story, but it might be a layer for her. Are Seraphina's parents dead?
Yeah.
Okay. So that would be something in true fairy tale fashion you might want to set up front. And it could be subtle. It could just be a picture of them that she looks at longingly, and we already, by that, we'll just know that they're not with us. But it adds to her character, too. There's like she takes a solace in the family she has at the school with these kids. So once that's kind of taken away from her, even for that day that she's, can't come back, and you know what I mean? It's like she's living a life that's full, but there's something missing, and we know that that's love.
Yeah, and we don't know what happened to them. We just know they're gone.
No, and I don't think that you need to explore that. That's not the movie that you're making, but that's a trope from fairy tales too. That the person's left kind of on their own. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I had for you, but hopefully that sparks some more fun, because I think that this is going to be really this is going to be a special one.
Okay, now I start writing.
Yes. Yeah. I think you've got enough of an outline for sure, and then it's just about enhancing it and filling in some of these things and expanding. But
You think I think I've got enough with this outline to start writing with all these new bits to like filter in.
Yeah, I think so too. And if you want to also, I would really do, because it'll be fun, but do some research again, going back over these fairy tales and just finding little things that you like. And if you want to shoot me even an email during the week saying, hey, I thought of these 10 things and this is how I'm modernizing them, if that helps.
Okay.
You can just put them in the script too, whatever. But, if you want to bounce them off, I'm certainly open to that, and I think it would be fun.
Okay. Fairy tale research. This is going to be super fun.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. At the end, I have a question about something else entirely that if there's any time, I want to ask you.
Oh, well, ask. So we have 2 hours, but really everybody's got like a half an hour. So we'll spill over into some of that other time. So yeah, shoot it out.
Jan and I were going to write that story about the Chris Dorner lawyer.
Yep.
And I was checking it out, and there's a company, it's called Vision Studios TV, that says that they are in pre-production of a Dorner story, and they've been supposedly casting for lookalike people of the victims since October, but they haven't cast anybody yet. I don't know. They don't seem to have done anything yet. And I'm wondering if that gets in the way of our doing a story.
Sure. So did you find this out on IMDb?
I found it out. They don't seem to have an IMDb presence, but they have a website called The Dorner Story.
Okay. But it doesn't look like anything's been updated since October?
I don't see anything on IMDb for this company.
Okay. So I would say unless, they're constantly updating things and there's like shots from set and that kind of stuff.
No, they're not in production yet. They're calling it pre-production.
Right. Well, and that goes to my point. So a lot of companies or people like to jump the gun and call it pre-production. And that pre-production isn't really pre-production, and it can last for years because they don't have anything moving. It's a clever, it's not, but it's that thing of like, if I tell everybody it's in pre-pro, people get really excited about it, but then they want to come on board when that's not really what it is. It's still in the developmental stage.
It is totally in the developmental stage. They've got a Facebook page, and they've had like 11,000 hits. And they would, if anything was happening, they would talk about it on this Facebook page. But what they talk about is who won the Oscars and who did this, and random stuff.
Yeah. So 2 things come to mind. The first is based on what you were just saying. I wouldn't worry about them. Number one, because they're probably not, as we are saying, in actual production. So there's that. The second thing is there are competing, if you will, stories all the time O.J. Simpson is the last one. You had the Ryan Murphy series, and then you had the O.J. Made in America 6-part series that played literally at the same time, and both to tremendous success and Emmy Awards and what have you. So granted, one was more documentary and one was the slightly fictionalized version, but still. You have Tombstone and Wyatt Earp back in the day, both talking about that shootout ultimately, but one exploring more of his life. So I think just continue to do your thing, and I wouldn't even worry about that.
Okay, good, because it was a little scary, to see this web page, but it was full of typos and mistakes, and they say it's coming in 2010.
Yeah, whatever.
Which,
nothing to worry about. It doesn't sound like off the cuff. The last thing I would say is that this year is the 50th anniversary of the Sharon Tate Bianca murders. There are 3 films coming out in relation to that, all with their own take. One is about Sharon Tate. Quentin Tarantino's film references the Manson murders in that time, but we don't know how much Manson's a part of it. And there's a third one that's more about Charlie and the actual murders. I have a script that deals with Manson but doesn't mention the murders at all. So they're all very, very different, sort of around the same thing. And they're not going to, they might get in each other's way, but they're all, 3 of the 4, hopefully mine too, but 3 of the 4 are moving forward and already shot. So.
Okay, well, I'm still thinking that we could do this as a 90-minute story just from the lawyer's viewpoint.
Yeah,
because we have that, and it looks like if these guys do this thing, and they did have a Gotti movie that came out with what's his name?
John Travolta one?
Yeah, they were somehow involved with that, so they're not completely blowing smoke here.
Yeah, but again, unless they're actually in production, and even then, I wouldn't really worry about it.
They're not.
I'm going to look up that Gotti film really quickly. So they're called Vision something, you said?
Vision Studio TV.
Yeah, which is odd already. Yeah, I mean, they're not even listed on the credits for the Gotti movie. So they either changed their name or they aren't really involved officially. Who knows?
Okay. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, but like I said, I wouldn't really worry about it at this point.
That makes me feel better because I would feel bad if we stopped doing that because somebody else said they were doing it.
Right, and so don't until you've seen the movie with your own eyes and you're like, oh my God, they did everything we thought.
Yeah, well, they don't have the lawyers. They don't have the lawyer, and they don't have the mother and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so that alone separates what you're doing too.
Okay, thanks.
Totally. Cool. Despina, do you want to go next? Wonderful. So Greek honeymoon, is this based on your life story?
Not exactly, but sort of. The first, yes. I did have those experiences in college where people told me that Greece is in Venezuela and then I said, no, actually it's in Morocco, and the next Morocco, and they said, oh yeah, that's right. So that one.
Those are close.
No, actually, these 3 stories that I have in the beginning actually did happen to me in college.
Oh my God.
I did have some very embarrassing experiences, and definitely not the guys that needed to be pursued in any way. And I did have a boyfriend at a time in Greece, so I was going back to Greece forever. I wasn't staying in the country. See how plans change. And so many years later. But I don't want this to be exactly our life. It's, I definitely want to use parts that are, that they were funny to me, but I want it to be fictionalized and different, My husband wouldn't appreciate it if we did it exactly how it happened. Plus, it's not that exciting because I'm still married to him. And we don't have, I have to make it sort of like where things go bad and then things go better. So.
Sure. How long have you been married?
35 years.
Great. So since you were 5 years old, wonderful.
Yes, thank you, Justin. I love you. But yeah, I got married very young. I didn't have children young though. I waited. We had fun because we just wanted to spend time. We ride motorcycles, so we did a lot of riding and stuff like that. And we had kids like 7 years later. So we had time to kind of like do things before we can be kind of like home with kids and not be able to do anything.
Sure.
So yeah, so things worked out, and he's a great guy. So I'm a lucky girl.
There you go. That's all that matters.
Yeah, yeah. My father, my only regret in all this is that my husband, his name is Victor, he doesn't speak Greek, and my parents didn't speak English. My dad spoke German, and my mother spoke Italian. So when he was in Greece, I had to translate constantly. And, you know, I think that was just sad for my dad because they hit it off great, but they will go out and do things together, but you know, sign language and things. It was funny.
Despina, is your name Romanian?
No, my name is Greek. Despina is the name of Christ's mother.
Moraitu. Is that
Moraitu. Moraitu is also Greek.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But Despina is, just for everybody to know, it's a very common Greek name. It's Christ's mother's name. Her name is Despina Maria, and Despina means mistress of the world.
Oh.
My friends call me Denise because a lot of people couldn't pronounce Despina. And my husband calls me Denise. The only time he calls me Despina is when I did something wrong. And
I was going to say when you were bad. Yeah, right. That's funny.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, so I did do a little bit more work on Mia, and I'm hoping to next week to send you like more of Mia and sort of like interchange, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
But I want to kind of work on this too. So then in April, when I'm going to be in Greece, I'm leaving March 28th. So when I'll be in Greece, I can kind of work on both.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great. Totally get it.
Yeah.
So I have some page-specific notes, and then I had some what I called not problems, but things to look at, right?
Sure.
So I can give you either or both up
Sure.
front.
Let's do it.
Okay. You want the page ones?
Yeah, sure. Let's go with those. I have it right in front of me.
Cool. So on page 1, when you're introducing the girls, I know that they're seniors in college, but put their ages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Just so we know. If they're all the same age, that's fine, but it just helps.
Okay.
And then Anna, you said she's an Amazon. Did you mean Brazilian, or were you being kind of cute, which is fine too, that she's like big and
sturdy, tall,
Okay.
not fat or anything, you know, like
Okay.
Wonder Woman
I was
Amazon.
going to say Wonder Woman. Yeah, okay.
So
I
how
would-
do I change that?
the off the cuff version would be she's black but built like an Amazonian. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, okay, I get exactly what that is then. So I would say something maybe her race, and then Amazonian is the description.
Well, Anna is not black. Jalisa is black.
Sure, I'm just saying, whatever you wanted her to be, I'm just giving you an idea.
I can say Amazon-like.
Yeah, or built like an Amazonian, that would work too, because we get that, or, yeah.
I don't think I would say Amazonian. Amazonian would mean that it's from the Amazon, but what I mean is the build of a woman that it looks like a warrior.
Yeah, then you could say Amazonian warrior if you want to use.
Oh, okay.
To me, if you said Amazonian, I would know exactly what you were doing. But
okay, all right.
Put in warrior, then there's no confusion at all. I get exactly what you're saying about it.
Okay.
You could even put Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Anna's dialogue, then on page 1, I think it's toward the bottom. I think it's fine. I would name the guy who likes Cat, because they're talking about it, but she just says that guy that likes you, but we don't know who it is.
It's from Scott.
Okay. Yeah.
And then should I say the guy who likes you? Is that what you mean?
Well, it just right now it just says the guy who likes you, but I don't.
Right.
That doesn't mean anything to me hearing that. So
I can say it's from Scott, you know, the guy who likes you.
yeah, where then she kind of is glazed over like she. Yeah, that would be fine. That's
Right.
cute.
Okay.
I would get rid of the small dick Japanese joke. It's a stereotype that's overused, and you're going to get like flack back from that, even if that's really something that people.
I did think about that when I put it. It's just that I remember her saying it. That was actually a real thing. She
Well,
did-
or you know what you could do is have her say that, and then have someone else go, not this Japanese guy I met. You know, that way you're breaking the stereotype. I'm a fan of that too. So whichever way.
Right.
You play it.
Right. So that's page 2.
Mhm.
Read Japanese. Yeah.
Yeah. So either take it out, or like I said, just turn it on its head, where you're saying something different.
Right. Actually, she did have a Japanese boyfriend who was apparently very well endowed, but she
Yeah,
just was
there
making
you go.
fun of him.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, yeah. There's a number of ways you could play it, but you get it.
Yep.
So on page 2, then you use the word communist, which is funny. I think it's capital C for communist.
Yep. Page 2. He is a communist. Yes.
Easy one.
Yep.
So did you really have an experience with a guy who ate soup with his hands?
Actually, yes. He was it was so embarrassing because my friend's father, he was a UN guy, very sophisticated Bostonian, and we went to this high-class Chinese restaurant. It was a high-class Chinese restaurant. The soup had noodles in it, so he started sticking his hands in and looking at me and eating it. And I just wanted to first kill him and then die. You know, it was one of the most embarrassing experiences of my life. So I should say he's picking up the noodles off the soup, because he wasn't scooping just soup. He was scooping the noodles out of the soup bowl.
Right.
So that's page
6.
Page 6. Scoop noodles. Yeah, I'll know how to change it. Noodles. And of course, the whole restaurant turned around and looked at us. That's
Of
when you
course.
want the earth to open and take you in.
Yeah. Well, watching someone do this and suck noodles out of their hand, that's crazy. But fun. So you got to keep it since it really happened, because I was like, who does this? But I love it. So the Annapolis guy, I think that you have that extra beat where then he tosses the rocks, like still thinking he can get her attention. I don't know that you need the extra beat. Like just have her like hit him, you know, turn around and he's like there, like as she's coming out of the shower.
Oh, just keep the shower.
Yeah, because it like lingered. I get what you were doing with that extra moment where he's tossing the rock.
Like he was all over the place.
Yeah.
He was kind of stalking.
Yeah. Well, then I would add on to it actually and show a series of a couple clips, like everything she's doing, he's there. You know,
Right.
she's off campus getting a coffee, and when she turns to grab a napkin, he's there handing it to her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Or create like a short montage.
Almost, yeah. And then have her say like, "Stop following me," you know, one of those.
Yeah. Yep.
So mostly because I don't know what happens in the future, but the scene where she's directing the play, is that something that comes back? Like, is that what she's like in school to do, or?
Yeah. The play, I wasn't going to put it back, and in fact, I was going to ask you about that. I don't want to put it back in because it doesn't add to it. It was just the activity that she was doing, and she's walking out mad out of the play. I could add the beat where they're all watching the play, but no. So do you suggest that I take it out?
Well, I didn't know what purpose it served outside of that she gets upset.
Yeah,
What-
she's.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I didn't know if you were saying she's kind of a either not control freak, but that she has very particular things, and when they don't go a certain way, she gets upset. If you're wanting to say that about her, you might want to show that a little bit either earlier in a different situation rather than take us to a place that doesn't matter, if that makes sense, meaning the play.
Right.
So play is part of the plot, like it comes back later where we're watching it or something, then maybe you want to do that in a different place.
Yeah. Think about play. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and this is more just a question of, again, because people see things in different ways and check certain boxes. So she meets Nick on like page 11, 12, which is fine. But my question was kind of like, now what? Because it's clear that they should be together.
Sorry, say that again because
Sure, it's clear that they should be together.
Okay, yeah.
So is the rest of the script going to be things that keep them apart and they don't get back together till the end, or where are you going to go with the rest?
No, the rest is, well, he leaves and they say goodbye. And then he calls her up the next day after they say, well, that's it, goodbye.
Uh-huh.
And he calls her up and invites her to his parents' house. And she goes to his parents' house. I mean, it's like right before her graduation. And, they're very snobby, rich people. That's not true for my,
Sure.
that's not my
Now we're in the fiction.
wonderful people.
Yeah.
So I don't want you to think that. So anyway, so they're snobby, rich people, but not very mean, but she finds herself a little, out of step with him. And so then that sort of like creates conflict between them.
Okay.
And then we don't see his parents again until they get married.
Okay, but in terms of the rest of the script,
So for this particular script, I haven't really done an outline, which I probably should do, even at least a basic out. I have a basic outline in my head.
Sure.
She goes to his parents' house, things, that cause some trouble for them. She goes to leave and he's like, no, let's get married. And they get married and decide to go to Greece, but her parents cannot come. So they get married and they fly to Greece for their honeymoon and to meet the parents and so on. And her parents are very different than his parents. And so he's having some trouble there. And then, of course, once they're in Greece, that's where the whole thing starts going sour because the ex-boyfriend comes into the picture. The parents are not particularly happy that she married an American capitalist rich guy. Her friend, she wants to go to the beach. She wants to do some cultural things. They have, they go to the beach and they meet some guy who is like a goat shepherd, who is like, and so Nick finds himself completely in a strange place that he thought he would love to be, but he finds that it's not the Greece that he thought it was.
Okay.
And so things come to conflict to the point where they're like, well, we got married too soon. That was the wrong decision. And I have him leave to come back to the States and she stays. And at that point, it's sort of like the end. And I'm not sure exactly how. I'd like them obviously to get back together.
I think that they have to, yeah.
They have to. It has to be a happy end.
So now that helps, because I think what you will want probably to do, what it comes out from what you said in keeping with that, is, all right, I'm leaving. I don't know what's going to become of us. She's sad. He's obviously sad. But then he calls the next day, which is like funny, really, because it's like, oh, you didn't even let 12 hours go by, and here you are. He invites her to meet his parents. It's awkward for her, but she gets through it. She goes back for graduation, and then she is going to go back home to Greece and invites him. And he says, well, why don't we get married and invite everybody over, right? Something like that. So then the majority of the film takes place in Greece. And
Right.
it's all the things that you said. It's like fish out of water for Nick. You know, who did I marry? Because you don't know each other well enough.
Right.
And then they have to find that thing that like is really true about them, that there is love there. But
Right.
there's just more that they have to learn about each other and life, that then sets them up at the very end. So
Right. I wanted to have that it's like all these other people that interfere with them, that
yes,
cause the trouble. You know, her parents on one side, his parents, her friends,
yep,
he
an
brings his
ex-boyfriend.
best friend,
Yep.
you know, or something like that. And they're being pulled in those directions. But at the end, they have to come to realize that when they're away from each other, they're both unhappy.
Yeah, that at the core, like they make sense. It doesn't matter
Right.
what these other people think they should be. They make
Right.
sense. So
Right.
there's your story. So that feels better because
Right.
my concern was, since they're already in love practically when they meet, it's like, where does the story go? But then now you've got it. So just keep
Right.
that in mind.
Yeah, I want them to be, of course, you know, it's supposed to be a romantic comedy, so they have to be together at the end and,
Yeah.
you know, live happily ever after.
Yeah, but this is great because now you're playing with what other people think they should be versus who they really are.
Right,
Because
right,
they didn't really get enough time to cement that, it makes sense that they'll question their own feeling.
Right.
So that's great.
Do you think they should have the wedding in Greece? Actually,
Yeah.
I wanted to have the wedding here because even just the wedding was actually kind of funny. My father-in-law completely forgot to come pick me up, and it was just like,
Oh my God.
and everybody thought that I skipped town because it was right on Queens Botanical Garden. So everybody thought the airport is right next door. She's leaving, you know, nobody, it was like a big mess. But I wanted to have it done in the States because obviously her parents cannot come, you know, and then have them go to Greece for the honeymoon.
Well, I was
But maybe have the parents, his parents follow.
well,
To
I-
meet her parents.
You could do something different too, where it's almost like they hint that maybe they're, how would I say? I think they're in Greece and like nobody wants them to get married because everybody's unhappy. Nick's parents are unhappy because they don't really get her. Obviously, her parents are unhappy because he's not Greek. And so they just kind of escape and leave them arguing, and they go to Vegas and get married. And
Yeah,
spend-
as you were saying that, I just thought that they fly back to the States, leave everybody in Greece, and go get married.
I think so. And then the family has to go follow them, and then you end the movie very briefly with everybody in Vegas finding something that they like there. Maybe something that's Vegas even related brings everybody together. I don't know. But you could play with that. It could be really cute.
Yeah.
You know,
I can.
it shows that independence of theirs, which I think is the heart of the film. That
Right.
She hasn't gone with these guys. Yes, they're funny and embarrassing stories, but she also tells us that she knows who she wants. She hasn't met
Right.
it yet, but she really does. And so does
Right.
he.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so as long as you stick with that, I think there's something fun. But the more kind of hijinks, so to speak, that can happen, and the more pulling you can do from a comedic point of view, the better it will be.
Right. Right. Okay. Yeah.
So the only thing I could say, it's more of just a question, it's not an obstacle, but if they both have partners, what does it say about them that they kiss right away and are together for these 2 weeks? And it's not a moral question, it's just something that you'd want to make sure that you've addressed in your own mind.
Yeah. I thought about that. But when I think, they're not married to them, they're
No.
dating them. I was thinking about doing a couple of flashbacks where she's with a boyfriend in Greece, and for some reason they're not getting along, and she's like, first, and then have a flashback with him with his girlfriend, and she's like, giving him a ring or something and saying, if you, asking him for a ring and say, if you don't give me a ring by Christmas, that like that kind of a woman where she's kind of like, that's a turnoff. For
Yeah,
most, I
so-
mean, these are not real things. I'm just coming up with them.
Yeah, so I would suggest, if you haven't seen it for a while, watch You've Got Mail.
Oh, You Got Mail, yeah.
Because they did a really good job, because both Tom Hanks' character and Meg Ryan's character have partners when they
Right,
meet.
right. They do, right.
But
And
it's the
she
way
wants him. She keeps the partner till the end. He's that naive, kind of like easygoing kind of guy, but he's kind of bleh, you know.
Yeah, no, and that's it. But there's something there that, not to steal from that exactly, but the beats of it, I think. might
Right,
work.
right. Yes, I will.
I had a thought for you too. It might be interesting if only Nick had a girlfriend, if maybe the person that she has up on her wall, right, is maybe someone she either pined over or is like a childhood friend who's kind of half promised to her. You could make him gay when she goes back. Like, that could be really funny. There's a lot of ways to pin it. But it might be interesting if she's not attached. She's just kind of has this ideal person that she's looking for, and that's who she has pinned to her wall. But if Nick does, but maybe they have either an open thing while he's away, but he knows that it's supposed to be only short-lived and you're not supposed to fall in love. You could play with those ideas too, make it really modern if you wanted to. So I'm just throwing that out.
Definitely. I can definitely. It could be somebody that she's been watching from afar.
Yeah.
And then when she goes back to Greasy, meets him, and what you said about him being gay, that's funny.
It could be. Like, she finally gets that moment alone with him, and she's going to tell him, and he's like, that's so wonderful. Here's my partner, Stefan. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Something like
That definitely. Okay. Good idea. Thank you.
And then, like, that says something about Nick, too, if, like, he ends up having this girlfriend, but he's not being unfaithful necessarily to her because they have this agreement. But if at the very end, like right before he's leaving, he confesses that to her, because then what it does is it says, oh, Nick isn't perfect. We thought everything was going to go a certain way, and now there's this wrench kind of thrown into it. Not just that he's leaving, but he's going back to someone. So then when she gets the call, saying, come visit, she's kind of like, are you choosing me now? Like, what's happening? There's things you could play with off of that.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, so just food for thought.
That's really nice, man. I like it.
I like that too. Yes.
Let's see if I had anything else. So my concern was, up to this point, we don't really have a lot of obstacles except that he's leaving. But what you've talked about where you want to go, I think you're going to be golden. Because now the obstacles come in. There's been kind of this fairy tale up till now, but boom, then he's gone, and then it's like, boom, the family, this, the boyfriend, the person she's been pining over,
So the point about him and the girl, going back to the girlfriend, did you mean for him to say that he's got the girlfriend right before he leaves and not reveal it earlier?
Well, because here's the thing. I'm thinking about it in terms of me. I don't have this experience. This is not my situation at all. I'm completely single. But if I was with someone and I had an open kind of thing while I was on a business trip, or I'm shooting a movie, and I met someone that I really liked, and you got 2 weeks, right?
Right.
You wouldn't necessarily tell them, well, I got someone back home. Why would you do that? You'd ruin the 2 weeks, right? So maybe that's it, and he just feels so awful because he really does care for her. He's fallen in love with her, that he finally does tell her, which tells us that he's a guy of integrity. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It breaks her heart, but at the same time, he's trying to be really honest and open.
Yes.
So
And maybe in that case, then have them not have sex while he's there for the 2 weeks.
Either way, you can play it whichever way feels kind of the best for what.
But or have them have sex and him kind of like be sort of be very guilty about it.
Well, and maybe the first time he thinks that that's fine. What I think makes a lot of intuitive human sense is that they hang out. They don't sleep together on the first meeting, but they hang out, and soon that becomes a thing, and they do. And after that, he realizes, oh shit, like I'm really falling for her. So when she kind of tries to initiate it again, he can't. And that's the moment where he says, it's not that I don't want to, I want it more than anything, but I'm falling for you and I have this woman. What? And then it's like, and I'm leaving tomorrow afternoon. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that would be
Bang,
cool.
slap, slap. Yes.
Because then it's a surprise to him too. He's not doing anything manipulative to anyone. If
Right.
anything, he's shocked himself because this woman got in deep where he didn't think anybody could. And that's pretty beautiful, actually.
Right. Okay, cool. Definitely that gave me a lot to work with for, until the next session. So yeah, so I'm going to try to even sort of write a loose outline too.
Whatever
and-
you want to do, because I know with Mia, at least, you just kind of wrote it and that felt right. But if you want to kind of.
No, actually with me, I did have an outline.
You did, right, at the
Yeah.
beginning. But then I'm saying then you just started writing. So
Then I kind of went a little bit off the outline after page like 45, 50.
Right.
I didn't leave that, I just added a few more things that just kind of like went out of my timeline of my outline, but the story still continues as the outline. This one, I don't have an outline. I just want it to be, like every romantic comedy. I just went and I saw, did you see Isn't It Romantic?
Not yet, no.
Well, I love her. What's her name? Rebel Wilson. I think she's hysterical. I just love her in everything she does. And when she plays with Adam Devine, he's very funny too, I think. And so this is all about the romantic comedy tropes, that she falls into this thing and suddenly, it's raining when they're kissing and, she runs in slow motion and all that. I laughed out loud. At the end, it was predictable and all that. But there is the whole thing about, and Crazy Rich, Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
I wasn't that particularly crazy about that movie.
No.
It got like so much for it, and I just thought it was like, I liked the beginning when everybody found out quickly and he was like an eligible bachelor and all that. But then for me, it just went downhill from there. So am I supposed to follow this kind of like, I have to study the trope and sort of follow it, or I'm just writing from the heart?
No, right from the heart for sure. But because of the setup that you naturally have up to this point, there needs to be something that's going to keep them apart, or better said, in your case, keep other forces are going to try to pull them apart for their own reasons. So that's already different than, there's a similarity to Crazy Rich Asians, actually, in the sense that, for better or worse, I didn't love the movie either. I love the opulence of it and a lot of beautiful people. But because I personally, my problem with that movie is I never really bought that they were this great couple.
Yeah, I know. They never seemed to have that much chemistry. He didn't seem to, like, how could she fall for her? Or how could she fall for him?
Yeah, it just kind of was assumed at the beginning, and I didn't buy it. But you have done the reverse. You've given a setup now to their actual meeting. So now you're into what we would call maybe more traditional romantic comedy, where, okay, now she's met the one.
Right.
How are they going to? Are they going to be able to sustain this? What does this mean?
Right. And one last question. The group of friends from college, I wanted to have them sort of like come to Greece. Yeah, they have to, right? Because I wanted to make it like, we graduate. This is our plan. This is, our graduation gift to each other. We're all going to Greece. We're going to the beach. And now so they can become an obstacle too. They're like, oh my God, now you're changing all the plans. We booked hotels, and all that. So, and is it okay that I've kept it on that timeline of back then? Part of the reason I'm doing that is because I don't want to use cell phones.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that all right to keep it at that kind of?
Yeah, because then there's a specific reason for it, and you can play with all the other things that were true, hairstyles, clothing, different, whatever you want as well. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Mary just wrote, she agreed about Crazy Rich Asians was very predictable, but it did provide content for a whole segment of the population that has been ignored.
And
True.
thank God, and that's its one big success, and I'm a huge fan of that. But as far as if we're getting into actual story and those things, yeah, I mean, it was very light at best, and it wasn't. I wouldn't see the sequel. I'll put it that way. But I'm glad for the success. It's about time people are considering Asian men, for example, romantic leads. It's like, why can't they be? And it's those stupid rules that are finally starting to break. So
Right. Okay, great. All right.
I didn't even know that was a rule.
well,
Hold
if you think about it, like when
Yeah, it's obvious when you say it, but yeah.
using sex symbols, like there isn't one. They're either
Right.
karate experts or computer geeks, and that's where Asian men have been relegated to.
Or Jackie Chan or karate, martial arts.
I mean, it's some sort of martial arts fanatic, or they're like the geek comic relief, and that's it.
Yeah.
One of the most romantic, beautiful films I think I've ever seen is In the Mood for Love.
Yes.
Bloody love
Which
that.
one is that? I want to
You
see
have
it.
to watch it. All Wong Kar-wai's work is amazing, but that's probably his masterpiece. Yeah.
It is so special.
It's
It's
called
so-
In the Mood
That
for Love.
unrequited love. It's called In the Mood for Love.
Okay.
Set in like 50s Hong Kong.
Oh, okay.
A must.
It is, yeah, it is essential viewing.
Yeah, I'll say this too. My favorite film of 2018 was Burning, which is a South Korean movie.
I didn't see
Oh,
that.
my daughter just told me about that. She said, Mom, we have to watch Burning.
Yes, you do. It's a romantic thriller, I think would be the way I would describe it. So breathtakingly beautiful. The story's amazing, and the three main actors are all excellent. So
Cool.
Thanks, dude.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to be watching a lot of films.
yes, you have homework.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you.
luck
I'm
with
done.
your
I don't have any
dinner.
other questions. Thank you so much.
Of course. Marty, how
How
are
you
you?
doing, Justin?
Good. Good. This is a far different from Browntown in a good way.
I know it's probably annoyed you, right? It's like, what the hell is Squirrel up to?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was like, interesting. I was actually kind of excited because I wanted to see what else, sparked for you and where your mind went. So, cool.
So, I mean, I'll give you some. I've written a couple of AI subjected scripts.
Sure.
I wrote this kind of TV pilot, which is a bit like it's called More Human Than Human, and it's a bit like Silicon Valley, but half the incubator, funny enough, is AI. So it's kind of like, and its origins are a bit like what happens when AI become potentially conscious and start to think for themselves and do things that we don't expect them to do. And this is where that sort of comes from. It's I mean, it's kind of a departure for me. So it's kind of like a straight, kind of action drama, and it doesn't. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest with you. It doesn't excite me as much as Browntown, because Browntown's very much. I just think it's got such leg. It's got real legs, whereas there's a lot of AI scripts floating around, right? But it's as far as I'm aware, it's kind of original USP. And it comes a bit I guess the reference, the film reference comp would be Nikita, the original French movie,
Right.
and which is very similar. It's kind of like she's like an automaton at the beginning, right? Have you seen it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a classic. It's a great.
Yeah, it is. And that was kind of like my inspiration for it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But I'm surprised actually that nobody's ever done this exact take on AI technology.
All right, cool.
you
I'm
know.
glad you're saying that. So it still has an original angle.
Yeah, it does. I think it absolutely does. So then it's just about not just execution, which it's always about that, but some of the choices that you're making in terms of how you're presenting it and what you want the ultimate kind of resolution or theme takeaway, I guess, to be. So I will just kind of start in from the beginning and kind of throw some things at you. So what happened to Charlie and his arm?
So the idea behind that is that he one, he was captured, and two, yes, he escaped, but yeah, he suffered this injury, and so he is kind of like he's got PTSD. Yes. It ruined his life, and he's also part machine.
Yeah,
he's in denial about it. So that's kind of, and it is kind of, it's the mirror to Josephine, who doesn't realize, that they have more in common than you'd think. That's the kind of idea behind it.
Cool. Do you picture him as being like anti-technology? Or is he just not looking at himself like that he's any different? Does that make sense to say it that way?
So, I mean, it's a key question. He basically, he resents the fact that machines are taking over his job, because he's a soldier and that's his career and that's his life. He doesn't know anything else. So the idea that a robot might take over his life is anathema to him.
So the other thing that you can play with there, you already have built in, and that is that he also should realize that he is flawed because he has PTSD. He's not really fit for battle anymore, whereas she has been programmed to be perfect, where ideally, according to the programmers, I'm thinking, because you kind of have this woven in, she's not supposed to be emotional at all. She's not supposed to make her own decisions. She's supposed to be, to your point, an automaton.
Yes.
So I would really play up the jealousy, if you will, angle to it too, where, if this guy who this is all he's known and now that's been taken away from him because of this, fucking disease, shall we say, in his mind, then here he is with this woman who's perfect. You know what I mean? I think that there's something really cool there to play off of, which will also then separate this from other AI stuff, because now you're making a comment about humanity, not just
it
AI.
Was also kind of looking at the fact that, I mean, in the UK, women have they've just been allowed to become part of the special forces. I don't know what the deal is in the US, but it's, they're just entering that institution. So it's kind of like, it's very kind of zeitgeisty thing. It's like, well, why haven't they until now? I mean, it doesn't make any sense anyway. But
sure.
But yeah, so it's kind of looking into that too. It's
yeah.
like, it's a male domain that it's one of those ceilings that is being smashed.
Yeah, but only recently, and one of the last ones. Yeah.
It's like last year.
Yeah, so that's tremendous. And play into that for sure, because it's been a boys' club, and now here's this chick. And not only that, but it adds that other layer then, because now it's a gender thing. Not only is she AI and perfect and taking over his job, but it happens to be a woman, which is the worst, right, for him.
Yeah, quite. He's basically emasculated.
Yes, and that's a great point. And here he is without part of his actual limbs. It's like you're visualizing his own emotional struggle.
It's definitely a theme I'm very aware of.
That's an interesting thing to explore for sure. And then it is also really with him about redefining what that masculinity even is.
Yeah, and I think ultimately that's his journey. And originally it was kind of like, it was more his story, but it's much stronger as her story, I think, because it's just more interesting, but it's more complex to run that because, there is this element of reveal sort of halfway through the script that she is an AI. She becomes aware of it. So it's like, I'm not sure whether to play it with where even he's aware of it. It's just, the possibility. He could be aware of it, but you know that whole reveal is pretty key, isn't it? Is when do you reveal it?
Yes, I think that it is, because that was one of my questions: is how many people knew that she was?
Yeah.
An
You see,
AI?
I'm not quite. Part of me, and originally, so Charlie was new from the get go, and that you know, he's kind of. But I think it kind of works better if almost it's a bit like the Blade Runner aspect to it. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a bit too close to Blade Runner, but he could be an AI himself. And you know, it's like, you know, he sees when there's the sort of in the midpoint ish towards, or the, where he sees the fact he's got a cybernetic arm. Maybe that's revealed to himself. It's like, shit, am I an MAI as well? Am I? It's like that. So I think
Yeah.
I might be stronger. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think that if you play it off of that, maybe she's the first woman in this special forces unit, and we don't know that she is AI. I think you play off that, and then the reveal around, like you said, the midpoint, page 50 or 60 or so, that not only is she a woman, she's this incredibly perfect machine. You know, like that's just going to eat him away more. That'll create more tension between not just she and him, but anyone else that's around. And then reveal that no, she has this other side. She has decided she doesn't want to kill. She's done it, and she's now making a decision that that's not what she's going to do, and she's bucking the original program.
So how would you deal with that? Because would you deal with it from the get go that because I mean, that's why I set up that kind of backstory where, you know, she's taken out a whole unit of these, you know, these kind of super terrorists, but she's, you know, haunted by it. Essentially, it's kind of like, and this is questioning her whole kind of morality. Even as an AI, it's kind of like, is this what she wants to be doing? So.
Right. And, you know, I don't know a lot about AI technology or what have you, but I do know this, that they learn, right?
Yes.
So I think the key would be that maybe she's been fine taking out whoever she's told to take out until she finds, you know, the bad version, or in the 80s, it would be till she bombs a building and there's a child in there. You know, you don't want that, but something like it to show, oh, wait, I'm just following orders instead of thinking for myself. And it's
that's the kind of allegory as well. It's, you know, the nature of soldiering. It's like, you know, you do things that are completely objectionable because you're following orders about how far do you go. So it's kind of, you know, like there's a lot of philosophical aspects to it.
And that's what makes it interesting. And that's the thing that's interesting about what we'll just call science fiction, which has that element in here. You know, Blade Runner's that way for that reason. Now, the look of it is great and all that stuff, but at the core, it's like we're finding something out about humanity.
Yeah, what is absolutely.
So I think give her some moment halfway through that then gives her PTSD, really, and identifies her more with Charlie, you know, and then it's about what's going to happen now that she's decided not to kill, and, you know, he's basically useless at the same time, you know, like, is he going to save her? Or is she going to save him? Do they both need rescue? Like, those are the
How
things.
do they get out of that situation? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think aiming for that is going to be the key. So I wouldn't show up front that she's made that decision yet. I would instead have her be like Rambo in the sense that she's a perfect killing machine, who then we realize it is a machine. Do you know what I mean? But not up front.
Yeah. So that's more, it makes more sense to me to have that arc as well. You know, that she starts off as, even though she might be disturbed and she's not sure why, but she's still a soldier and that's what she does. And then, you know, she's the whole process, the journey she goes on, questions that you know, what she did, her backstory, and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one of the other questions I had is why would a PTSD-ridden ex-soldier be brought in to train a super soldier? And I think from what you're saying, the answer is probably that he's denying that he has PTSD, and she can be the one to help kind of him uncover that. And then when she has her moment, then they identify like with each other, you know, like that makes more sense thematically for what you're trying to do, that kind of thing.
That's a key. That's a good point as well. Yeah,
Because like I feel like if he's smart enough to pass all their psychological tests and otherwise, that yes, he's been relegated off of the battlefield where he really wants to be because of his condition, his arm specifically, and just the things that happened to him. But now he can still train. Do you know what I mean? Like I would buy that if he's like smart enough to overcome their tests. But we see him in a private moment, like really messed up.
So, for example, there's this it's actually really good. It's like a TV series in the UK, which is, it's like putting, regular Joes through special forces training. And the guys that do the training are ex-special forces. Yeah. And a couple of them, actually half of them have suffered PTSD. And it's like, and they, it's, ruined their careers ultimately. But they're still fucking these crazy hard nut ultimate soldiers. So it's kind of like, and they disguised it from however long they did until eventually they couldn't disguise it anymore. Anyway, it really interested me. It's like how, even these uber soldiers, ultimately they can crack.
Well, that's it. And then what you're doing through this whole thing and the story with the terrorists and all that is pointing out to humanity and the fact that none of us are invincible, and that the best AI we could create is going to end up like us, in the sense that they're vulnerable too, or have the capacity for it. There is no such thing as perfect feelings or, being any conscious entity being okay with just taking life randomly, because that goes against the grain of.
Unless you're actually just a robot with, just like function, basically a drone.
Of course, yeah. If all I am is like push a button and I fire a weapon, okay, fine. But there's no intelligence to that. There's simply design. There's a big difference.
So it's kind of looking at all those issues, and it's like, I guess, part of me is like, it needs a bit of humor. Because it's like, it's pretty dark, it's pretty down. So I don't know.
I think you could infuse it with, I'm going to make it up, and this is just what came to mind, but you've seen Aliens, right?
Yeah, of course.
You need your Bill Paxton character. You need the guy to go, hey man, or whatever, and like maybe he starts with her.
Game over, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Put her in charge of that whole thing. Exactly.
I miss that guy, man.
I know.
What's his name? Bill Paxton, yeah.
Bill Paxton, yeah, great actor. But you can offset kind of that hardcore military with someone who's just kind of like a loose cannon as far as like the kind of humor that they have, Or
I mean, I thought of it doesn't really come over in the outline, but originally Charlie was like that. He's kind of like, that's part of his defense mechanism. He's got
that's great.
He's a comedic character. He uses humor to disguise the fact he's a damaged motherfucker kind of
so
thing.
That's it. I think that's exactly right. You don't need another character. Make it Charlie. That's tremendous. See, your instincts, man. Your instincts are right.
Okay, cool. But you are, even though it might not be your thing, you're intrigued by it.
No, it is my thing, because it's driving toward humans talking about themselves, and you're using AI as a vehicle, and this terrorist action and stuff as the vehicle to do it. So, but what you're exploring, yeah, absolutely, I'm all about that.
It's kind of, one of my favorite authors, he's 5 years dead now, Ian M. Banks. I don't know whether you read him.
No, I haven't. I know of, for sure.
So he writes about the culture, which is a world which is run by AI. Mm-hmm. It's, there's the humans and all sorts of other humanoids within this society, but ultimately everything is run by AI because they're way more sophisticated and they're way more capable. But it's kind of like a socialist utopia run by AI. And the stories are all on the fringes of that. And it's kind of like, they're like spy stories I highly recommend them if you're into sci-fi.
Yeah, I'll have to read it.
But it kind of comes from that, it's like, if we're going to, as a society, we're going to evolve, ultimately AI is going to be part of that. And are they going to have rights? It's
Yeah.
kind of like ultimately, at some point, they probably will do. We can't. Do we treat them as slaves? We enslave them? What the hell do we do with them?
Right. Yeah.
It's
So
also
you,
thinking about that as well.
no, it's true. So you either limit their capacity for what we would call consciousness, or which just makes them machines. It makes them robots, not AI. So yeah, it's tricky, and we don't have the answers to that for sure.
No, and that kind of narrative, I find it interesting. It's a bit like obviously Ex Machina is that's the kind of
Yep,
yeah,
iRobot explores that too, especially the book. Yep.
there's a great end to that. I love the end to Ex Machina.
Yeah, no, it's a great movie.
Yeah. Okay.
See what else stood out to me.
So yeah, what would you do going forward? Just, I mean, yeah.
Well, I think you have the story, right? So I would start with Charlie. Maybe we see him on. Maybe you let the audience know right away that he's suffering, but then we watch him cover it up really fast. And then he's introduced to his next job. The bad version is to say you're not on the battlefield anymore. You're training, and then who? And then this woman walks in, and it's Josephine, and he puts her through the ringer because she is a woman. And because you would with someone who was new anyway, and then watches her succeed, and then this thing happens, this terrorist action happens where they have to go out. It's even him, like maybe he's only supposed to stay in the chopper or something, but he ends up being pulled into it too. And along the way, then they discover more about each other. You have that moment, like I said, where she is supposed to kill and she does, but then something else has happened and it triggers her to make her own choices, and you watch what that means opposite him, because he's now starting to suspect.
I like the idea that ultimately, they're in the same boat. They're kind of incapable of killing. How the hell do they get out of that? Think about that.
Right. Right. Cool. And what does that mean? And for both of them, what does that mean for longevity?
So regarding Browntown, I have as I'm developing it as part with you, obviously, but for this master's I'm doing in directing, and so I'm probably going to send you the next version of that next week, because it makes more sense. And we've got so far with that. If that's cool with you, man.
No, it's totally cool. I think do what Despina's doing, where you're kind of sending one on the alternate weeks, because that'll give you time.
Is that cool? That's no problem with you.
1,000%, absolutely. Please, I would be mad if you didn't. Yeah, you don't want me mad. Just make
absolutely not, dude. Thank you so much. Brilliant.
Yeah. The last thing I would say too is it just is occurring to me to voice it this way, that both of them, you could say, both Charlie and Josephine have been designed to be this certain thing, these killers, heartless killers, but that doesn't mean that that's really who they are. And I think that's the beautiful thing to explore. Just because she's a robot AI and he's born human flesh, you're saying the same thing. Consciousness is consciousness, and it's evolving and changing all the time as we grow and learn. And that there's something really powerful there.
Thanks, man. Much appreciated. I mean, there's this, I wasn't sure whether it might be too cheesy that there's almost like an unrequited love between them, but I thought about, they developed this bond.
Well, there's a bond, whether that would ever be romantic or, sexual.
One of the other inspirations was The Heart of the Beast.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like, well, you could argue that that's the kind of relationship between AI and a human. It's like man or woman and dog, but of course they're more than that. But it's that kind of bond.
Yeah, no, totally. Have you read Harlan Ellison?
No. What's that?
You need to read Harlan Ellison. So Harlan passed away maybe 2 years ago or a year ago, but one of the most prolific science fiction writers of all time, and just writers, period. He hated being classified just science fiction. But he and Ray Bradbury were contemporaries and really good friends. But Harlan actually won a lawsuit against James Cameron for The Terminator.
Oh, right.
Harlan had written a story that mirrors exactly the plot of James Cameron's The Terminator movie. But there's a story called I Have No Mouth, But I Must Scream, which is a phenomenal, ominous title. But it deals with AI and kind of AI gone wrong. But that might be something fun for you to read just because I think you would like it.
Thanks, man. Much appreciated. I'll check it out.
Totally. All right.
Thanks, dude, for
Of course.
as always, awesome. Much appreciated.
Now, I was excited when I got, my same peeps -1, but I think I will.
Well, you got Jeff tomorrow, right?
Get Jeff tomorrow, yeah. But just having everybody, it's so nice. It's like there's a shorter hand now because we know each other, which is cool.
I wanted to ask you, Joey asked if we want to share our work. And I'd be willing to, if you guys want to send me your stuff to exchange. I didn't send a note to Joey, but I meant to say here, because it's nice if we read each other's stuff, then we know what you're talking about.
Yeah, of course. I sent you some Browntown last time, but it was the last.
What? I never got anything from you.
No, I sent you it. Maybe it's in your junk.
What?
I did send you it. I promise.
I have to write your email.
I got junked.
Hold on.
But dude, send
me that you're saying that because what?
Anne-Mary, please send me your stuff if you want to.
No, wait. Could you give me your email, please?
I'll put it in the chat. No
I
problem.
can connect all of us. Don't worry about it. I'll connect everybody.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I'll send an email to everyone afterwards with a special note that says have a good weekend or something.
Yes, please do, because oh my God, Marty, I'm so sorry. I swear I did not see it, but I will look for it.
No sweat, dude. Don't worry.
Keep lying, Marty. I'm just kidding.
I have one last question. Has anybody seen Greta?
No, and Neil Jordan was just at a Q&A down the street, and I love Chloe Grace Moretz, and I don't know Isabelle Ruppert that as well as an actor, but I love Neil Jordan, and I would have gone to see it for him, but then I read the reviews. I was like, I just can't. I can't.
It was. I thought it was bad, and I felt really bad because I went with such high expectations that, that I thought to myself, oh my God, how did he did The Crying Game, an interview with the vampire, which I love these movies,
Yeah.
And then, well, okay, I was wondering if anybody else saw it and felt the same way.
He hasn't made a movie for a long time, has he? Not that I'm aware of, anyway.
Not one that kind of hit the marketplace in a bigger way.
He's kind of tuned out. Sounds like he's still tuned out.
Yeah, that movie was a lot of the reviews are good. Some of them are very bad. One of them was.
Didn't he get the Oscar for The Crying Game? I think. Did he get Best Director? He got Best Film or something, didn't he? Got something.
Did he get an Oscar for The Crying Game?
He got. I think so.
It was nominated. The movie didn't win. He might have.
Oh, right.
If I go back. But.
I don't think he. Yeah, I think the movie. You're right. I think the movie was nominated. He didn't win. I don't think
that was when he was at the peak of his powers back then.
Oh, totally. Michael Collins is really good. If you have.
Yeah, that's a great movie.
Yes, that movie was really good. But this particular one, just even the beginning premise with a woman leaving the purse on the subway, like in New York, if you're from New York, that if you see a purse like that, what you do, you call the cops. You never pick it up. And this girl was supposedly from Boston. I was like, oh my God. They should have had her being from Minnesota, but Minnesota, like from somewhere in the woods where she would be so naive or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, honestly, that you told me, because I was mildly curious, like I said, because of Neil and Chloe. But then, I wouldn't bother now. So cool.
Well, yeah, it's going to come out and you can see it, on stream. Isabelle Huppert is very good at the part. I just think it's just weird how he develops logically. And I thought to myself, if I wrote that script and passed it to an executive, and it's funny because it's one of the executives that we're working with that is on the film. And she's very nice. She gives great comments and stuff. And that's why a lot of people were probably really interested in watching it. But I thought to myself, if you give that script to an executive, the first thing they're going to do is like the logical connection to things, you know, be like, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense, you know.
I will say though, because Neil wrote the script, he has a co-writer, but he's one of the writers. If I got a Neil Jordan script, I don't know if I'm going to be like, hey Neil, listen, bud, we got to like work on this thing. So
yeah, I know, I guess.
I'm partly packaged, and then it's more about saying I support the vision of this filmmaker and this talent. So.
Right. Yeah.
That's a problem when people are like directors or whatever, stars are so big. It's hard to tell them to think to go fuck themselves.
Well, and to the point,
it's not working.
You just say like, this doesn't make sense. You know, let's work.
Well, on the other hand,
how do you deal with that, Justin?
So this is how you deal with it. I think you just have to make a choice as to trusting the filmmaker and understanding the vision that they had, or, you know, really digging in and saying, I get the vision that you have, but there's some things to resolve before we go forward. I obviously won't say who, but I have a script that is too long. It's bloated. The essence of the story is great, and the way the two main characters are written is fantastic. And it's by a writer that you guys would absolutely know. I believe Oscar nominee, but certainly it's made films that you guys would go, oh my gosh, I love those movies. And you know, I gave notes. I respect the talent, but it's like, no, we need to cut about 15, 20 pages because those pages are time. And there's too many characters that you don't need. Let's hone them down and put them into either one or whatever the case may be. And so, you know, I'm respecting their work, but at the same time,
what happens?
Their work better. So far, so good. The other executive on it said, I actually agree with all of these things. And so he's like, I have the same feelings myself. So once we move to the next step, then we'll address these notes with the writer, who's also going to be the director. So that was a plus. It's like, because I had a little bit of a debate, like, do I tell what I'm really feeling? And I thought, you know, I'm gonna. It doesn't mean I'm right. It's not like that, but it's
of course.
But it's nice for them to hear your point of view.
Mm-hmm. And then it's about how you present it. And, you know, the truth is for this, if it moved forward and the writer said, I'm not going to change a word, it's still going to be a really good movie. I just think it could have been that much better if they addressed it.
Is that your role as development and production dude? Yeah.
So this one came to me with a lot going for it. Like, they have money, they have some interested talent and things already. So I didn't start for me as like either as a script or a book, which it's both. I got it later on into that process, but I'm still gonna, you know, open my mouth, and if there's something I feel like we should at least talk about, it's not fixed.
Absolutely.
Is your name gonna go on the credits, Justin?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I would be an executive producer on it. So we're.
Oh, right. Wow.
Cool.
That's a cool title, dude.
It is kind of fun, right? Yeah. So,
is that your first exec producer title?
It would be, and it probably will go forward because we're hopefully going to be shooting it maybe May, June, something like that. So once I sign the paperwork officially and all of that, I'll let you guys know. When I can reveal something, I will. So.
That's so exciting, man.
Do you know where you'll be shooting?
Yeah, upper state New York.
Oh, upstate where?
Yeah, just outside of New York City. You
Like
get a tremendous
Westchester?
area, yeah. So you get a tremendous break in the tax credit by shooting there.
Oh.
And this is kind of a small town community that comes together kind of story. So you don't need New York City per se or LA or something to shoot this.
Yeah.
But we have good relationships there. The tax credit all came together for the film. They actually have a little studio up there that will work perfectly for some of the things we need an interior of a studio for. So
is it close to Ryan Cliff?
I believe it is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because Ryan Cliff is attracting a lot of that.
Yep. They just did, not Liam Neeson, who was it they were telling me? Nick Cage or somebody was just there shooting a movie. So yeah, it's starting to be like this little, slightly off the grid, but close enough so the talent can stay in a nice 4-star or 5-star in New York and ship them up in 45 minutes kind of thing. So it's cool.
Well, there are also nice places around. I live an hour north of Rhinecliff in Albany.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, there are like some really nice hotels down around. Rhinecliff is a very uppity area. So,
Yes.
it's
Dude,
nice.
how do you find the time to do the incubators and all this shit whilst you're working?
I never sleep,
How you do it?
I never sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just reached it. Yeah.
You are like superhuman, dude.
Well, it's funny. I've been on a good run, shall we say, where it feels good to do it. It doesn't feel like it's pulling me down. And as long as that's the case, I like the contribution part of this and the back and forth. It also helps me meet amazing writers who then help expand things for me. So to me, it's just a win-win. So as long as I can keep it up without exhausting myself or you guys getting super bored of me, then I will.
Bollocks, man. Why do you think I'm
Thank you
still
so
here?
much, Justin.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you
Yeah,
guys.
you
Yep.
too, man.
See you next
See you
week.
guys. See you
Thank you.
next
Bye,
week.
guys.
Bye,
All the
guys.
best.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.